That's
What's
right.
up, everybody? This is Roy Cathey from the Fifth, and you are watching the This Is Metal show.
Hello, Roy. You're a returning guest, and I got my great co-host Lethal X with us today. And last time we talked to you, you came on with Mark Ferrari, and we talked about the other band, Cold Sweat. But today we're talking about the Fifth and your debut album. So I was reading, Roy, that you guys were the first act signed to Ron Keel's RFK Media. What an honor! Talk a little bit about that and how you guys hooked up with Ron.
Well, it's kind of an incredible story because, like, literally one of the first rock concerts I went to as a kid was Keel, Helix. I believe Accept was on the bill. It was like this killer four band bill. And if somebody would have come up to me and said, "Hey, you see that guy with the blonde streak? You're going to be in a band with him in a couple of years, and you see the guy singing? Well, he's going to be the president of your record label." I
Yeah.
would have I would have told him that they were crazy, but me and Ron kind of reconnected when Cold Sweat reunited on the 2020 Monsters of Rock cruise. He called me up on stage. We did the Right to Rock together. And him and his confidant and best friend and partner in the RFK Media venture, Aaron Fisher, uh, they kind of had me on their radar for a while. They've been watching my career and what I've been doing with the Fifth and just my overall tenacity and just not willing to stop. And they kind of put me on their radar. And whenever they put the label together, Aaron and Ron approached me and said that they would like for us to be the first band signed. And it was just an incredible honor, because I have a lot of respect for Ron. And Aaron is just a great guy and a great friend. And to be involved with RFK Media and to be the first band signed to the label was a huge honor. And it's been just fantastic from the beginning.
I'm sure it has been. Okay.
So I was just going to ask you a question. So the fifth, I'm trying to figure out where that name came from. If there's actually a meaning for it, is it just like, well, gee, let's see, one, two, three, four. Hey, let's stick with the fifth because that's the fifth time I've actually been a singer. Something like that.
Okay, well, here's the actual story of where I got the name The Fifth. I was DJing in strip clubs in Atlanta, Georgia, somewhere around 96. And the club that I worked at had an elevated DJ booth, and we didn't have couch rooms. So the way for me to make sure I got tipped out accurately by the girls is I would count their table dances. So I would be up there doing my thing, looking down on the floor, and I had a sign-in sheet with the girl's name, and I would put one dance, two, three, four, put a slash mark through it. And I remember one night looking at it, and I went, five, fifth. That looks cool. That would be cool on the slash marks. I just thought about it being on a kick drum, on a hat, on a t-shirt, and I just kind of filed it away in my brain. And years later, whenever it came time, I went the fifth. And for me, I like the name, and I've always liked the name because it can mean a lot of different things. A fifth of liquor, the fifth dimension, the fifth commandment. It's just there's so many things that you could do with it. There's four people in the band. The fifth could be the fans. They're the fifth member of the band. So for me, as well as the way I write my lyrics, I kind of leave it up for interpretation. But there was an origin of how it became the fifth, and it was birthed in a strip club, as all great rock and roll adventures do.
Very, very good.
And well, that explains the video I saw then with the bottle tipped.
Right, right. Well, a great thing about that Shake Little Sister video is that's literally how we got voted onto the Kiss Cruise in 2022. They were having a contest, do you want your band to play on the Kiss Cruise? I was scrolling through Facebook one day, and I was like, well, hell yeah. And all we had to do is just submit a video, and that video had everything that a Kiss fan could possibly want. I mean, just sex, drugs, and rock and roll, debauchery, booze, strippers, chicks dancing all over the place. We got a stripper coming out of a drum case on dancing across the bar. So that song and that video is really what got us on the Kiss Cruise. So it's like we have a certain formula that we kind of went with at the beginning, and it worked very well for us.
Okay, go ahead, Jason.
I know that Chris McLaren from Saigon Kick and Cold Sweat produced the album, wrote some of the songs. Talk about working with him as a producer and what he brought to the project.
Well, my history with Chris is very well known, and from the very first days of being in Cold Sweat with him and going into pre-production and everything, I realized that Chris is a very musical person. He was one of those guys that could pick apart the harmonies. We were doing 3 and 4 part harmonies in Cold Sweat, and Chris was one of those guys that could pick the harmonies out. He was very musical, and we've kept our friendship going through the years, and whenever we got to deal with RFK Media and things started to get very serious about well, who's going to produce it, what we're going to do, I was the one that suggested using Chris, because I knew from his background with Cold Sweat. I also knew from his background in Saigon Kick, and also he had become very good friends with Eric Bass of Shinedown and had been hanging out with those guys and the studio that they have down in Charleston, South Carolina, which we got to record the record at. Chris was kind of the fly on the wall for like the last 3 or 4 Shinedown records that were recorded there, written there,
Uh,
So, Chris was kind of absorbing all this musical knowledge, as far as in the studio. And I already knew that he had the musical knowledge of just, the general, basics of being an excellent musician. So Chris was a no-brainer. And of course, he accepted. And this is his first official production job, and I just think he did a spectacular job, and I think he's got a very bright future ahead of him as a producer, because Chris is a musician. He gets it. He's toured. He knows the ins and outs of the business, but he's one of those guys that knows how to get the best out of you without putting the boot on your neck. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah.
He's not heavy-handed. He was very good at getting the best out of each individual player in every performance. So Chris McClernand did a killer job on the record.
Oh wow! And one more quick question. I always love to ask people about their nicknames. Now, talk about the Mouth from the South. Is that a name you gave yourself, or did somebody else give that to you?
Well, it was kind of a moniker that just kind of came about after the years. I'm an old school wrestling fan, so I've always kind of had the gift of gab, so to speak. And if anybody that's ever seen The Fifth live or Cold Sweat, you know, um, I'm a front man. I know how to talk to the crowd. I enjoy making those connections through the music, and you know uh,
Mm,
I just kind of came about the name also because I was somebody that was not afraid to speak my mind
there you go.
on any topic, and I was more than willing to stand up for what I believe in and say my piece, and throw caution to the wind. So, you combine all those elements and my personality. It just the mouth of the South just kind of started to get mentioned a lot more and more, and it just kind of stuck. And I'm just waiting to get sued by Jimmy Mouth of the House Hart because
I mean,
yeah,
I think it's almost
I'm
as
sure he
fitting.
has it trademarked.
Yeah, almost as fitting as Sammy Hagar, the Red Rocker. Take it
Right,
away,
right,
Lethal.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So I noticed that a lot of the songs have you as one of the lyricists for them. So is the title track is what's that all about? Those
We
lyrics in there. What is the story behind all that stuff? And what should people walk away thinking from that? Or is that something you want people to do? You want them to kind of guess?
Well, we are one. I'm the lyricist of the band. I'm the guy that writes the lyrics and the melodies. I leave the music to the musicians. I'm the guy that kind of tries to tell the story. And we are one is basically how we are a very divided country, a very divided world. And if you listen to the lyrics very closely, it's basically me speaking truth to power. I feel like the corporations run our country. It's not necessarily run by the citizens anymore. And I think that the corporations have bought out all the politicians. And that's basically what the song is about, is that, if we could, fight, if we can stand together, we could fight, or we can fight and fall apart, And as we all know, if you got, any kind of sense, they want us divided. They don't want us to stand shoulder to shoulder, and that's basically what We Are One is about. If we could fight and come together, or we can fight and fall apart, and that's basically what We Are One is about.
Okay. Yeah. So I also love the song "Blame It on Rock and Roll." To me, it's just one of those good old time, rock anthems. Talk a little bit about that, and what's the writing process for that?
Well, we got a couple of songs on there that we weren't afraid to let our southern twang out a little bit. The band is from North Carolina, you know, but we kind of let the southern rockish kind of sound come out a little bit in that one, and you know the main story behind that one was and the approach that I took lyrically is, I could have been a lawyer. I could have been a real estate agent. I could have had a mansion and a bunch of cars and boats, and I could have made all those life choices a long long time ago. But I decided to pursue a music career. I stuck in rock and roll when it became unfashionable. I've never changed my style. I've never, strayed from what I believed. So, blame it on rock and roll is basically, my admission to like everywhere that I've messed up in life, or if you can call it messed up, you can just blame it on rock and roll because from a very early age, 14, 15 years old, the music just it spoke to me, and my father had a musical background with his family, and you know all the mistakes and all the good and all the bad that's happened over the past couple of years, you could just blame it on rock and roll.
Yeah, yeah, and Roy, what I love about your story too, I don't know if you agree with this or not, but you're one of these guys that you've worked hard like to get to this point in your career, and I don't know if you feel like it's almost like your second shot at it, but after all these years of hard work, it feels like it's finally paying off.
Yeah, I would like to think that I'm getting like a second or even perhaps a third chance at this. I think that's one of the things that drew Aaron and Ron to me at the very beginning is, my sense of tenacity and my sense of like just not giving up, I mean, I made my mind up a long time ago that I was going to be a lifer, and this is what I do, and I've worked very hard to take care of myself and take care of my voice through the years. So, it's just crazy for me after all these years. If you get in certain circles of people in the industry and you ask them, who's the best singer in the genre, my name is mentioned, and that's very flattering for me. But I've put in a lot of hard work and I've made a lot of sacrifices. To sing the way that I do, you have to make a life choice and a decision to live a healthy lifestyle. You know what I mean? It's like I don't smoke, I don't drink. I live like a monk. I go to the gym every day. You know what I mean? I'm the singer nerd that's got the little portable nebulizer. I'm huffing on steam, and I'm drinking the tea. I come off the Monsters of Rock cruise recently with Cold Sweat, and I drank 2 beers the entire cruise.
Wow.
And I just the fans, they spend their money on your CDs. They spend their hard-earned money to go on these cruises and to get up close and personal and meet you and see you perform, because Cold Sweat's one of those bands that you're not going to see all the time. You're only
Yeah,
going to see them like on the cruises or a big festival or something. So it's like I've always been the guy that wants to give the fans their money's worth. I want to be the guy that when they walk away, they're like, holy shit, that guy sounds exactly like he used to back in the day, if not better.
yeah.
And I've tried to improve as a vocalist all through the years. So
Yeah, and I think the other thing, Roy, is that I've heard other people compare you to kind of saying you got a deal like quality of your voice, but I think what's unique is I was listening to the new CD, and honestly, you got your own thing going, if you know what I mean. I mean, when people listen to the debut fifth CD, I don't think they're going to say he's trying to sound like Ozzy, he's trying to be the next James Hetfield. You got your own unique sound, and I think that's why fans are going to buy this.
well, I appreciate that, but I will be the first to admit I'm a mutt. I mean, my vocal style is a little bit of Ronnie James Dio. I got some Ray Gillen in there. I've got Rob Halford in there. I've got some Jeff Tate in there. Oh wait, here comes a little David Coverdale. You
Okay.
know what I mean? I'm somebody that came from a background of singing cover songs, you
Okay.
know. So my career when I started when I was a teenager, I was singing everything that was popular. So you take those bits and pieces, you know, and kind of make them into your own. And I really don't think that anybody sounds like me. I don't think that my voice is generic or cookie cutter.
Yeah.
I think that I have my own texture and tone, and I have my high note can sound a little bit like this. I could put a little rasp on it and sound a little bit like that. You know, so I'm one of those guys that, you know, I've taken care of myself. I really take pride in my voice, but mostly, you know, it's like I've tried to be original and unique without really trying to be
Yeah.
original and unique. I've just really tried to be the best Roy Cathey I could be.
That's all anybody can ask. Take it away, Lethal X.
Yeah, talking about that, when I was listening to that, the songs, I was like, okay, who does he sound like? And I was like, okay, no, he sounds like Dio. I said, no, wait a minute, that sounds like, maybe somebody who was a singer for Ingrid Mounds. I was like all over the place with that, and that was actually kind of cool because so many singers are just like this is the way it is. Every note they do is the same, and there's a lot of variation in what you do. And so that's something to say to your art, and that's what it is
Right.
singing. And so let's talk a little bit about the album itself and where are people going to be able to get this album? How are they going to be able to buy it? If there's any upcoming tours, any of those types of things.
Well, you know, of course, it's on all the streaming platforms, Spotify and Apple Music. You can find it on Amazon if you want to buy the physical, you know, CD. You could also go to rfkmedia.com and they have an entire shop where you can, right there, where you can pick up the physical product. It's out there, you know. My girlfriend, we were on Amazon just the other night, and there was like one copy left, you know, and I'm still, you know, I'm still a fanboy in a lot of ways, even though it's my own band. I still get excited about that kind of stuff. I'm, oh my God, there's only one left. You know, that means that we've sold, you know, so and so. But you know, I'm super proud of this record. You know, there's been a lot of hard work put into it. We knew that we had to deliver something special to Ron, because we were the first band signed to RFK Media. But you know, going back to working with Ron briefly, you know, Ron was so fantastic because he never made us feel rushed. He was always, you know, hey, let those guys finish writing these songs. Let them progress organically. Let's not put any pressure on them. And you know, he's an entertainer. He's still out there playing shows, so he gets it. So he was the perfect level of, you know, giving us that space. But then, all right, boys, you know Ron's deep voice, you know, all right, gentlemen, where are we at on things? You know what I mean? So working with Ron's been great. And as far as touring goes, you know, we're in the process of talking with a couple of agents and agencies to hopefully kind of get us some shows going this summer. But you know, everybody's got schedules going on in different different projects and stuff. You know, that's the thing with rock bands nowadays. You'll find a lot of bands. There's guys that are in two bands, three bands, and stuff like that. So right now we're kind of moving the pieces on the chessboard, you know, syncing up everybody's schedules and hopefully get some shows going and some mini tours happening in mid to late summer. That's our goal.
Go ahead, Jason.
Okay. Yeah, I wanted to ask you, in regards to the other song I really loved was Armed and Ready. I mean, again, that's just another kind of a kick-ass song. I mean, I could see you kind of doing it as an encore or something like that.
Well, you know, that's our blue collar anthem, you know, armed and ready. And that's, you know, something that's, you know, I don't write about things that I don't, you know, feel in my heart. I have a blue collar job.
Yeah.
Okay. You know, it's like I still do this rock and roll thing, but Roy still has a real job. So it's like Roy gets up at 6 o'clock in the morning and Roy's in the HVAC business. So Roy could be on the Monsters of Rock cruise for a week, being treated like a rock star and having people want my autograph and take pictures with me. But then when I get home on Monday, they're like, Roy, crawl under that house. So nothing keeps you more grounded than, having a blue collar gig and still pursuing this and doing what you love. But Armed and Ready is a blue collar anthem. I mean, it's basically talking about the blue collar workers, the men and the women that are out there working every day, getting up at the crack of dawn, and all they're doing is working for their families and working to pay their bills, and when the weekend comes, they're ready to tear it back, and that's another one of the songs that we kind of felt like it was okay to let our southern blue collar kind of roots come out in the music, and I just fully embraced it. And from the very beginning, when we started working on that riff, that's just one of those songs that just fell together. It was just like some of them you gotta tweak it, you gotta massage it, you gotta write it, you gotta rewrite it, but that was one that was just like, to coin a southern term, just shit through a goose, Bo. It was
Yeah,
just like,
yeah. And another quick question I have for you, Roy, is I was curious, like talking about having a 9 to 5 job, going to work every day, being a regular Joe. Have any of your coworkers ever like found out that you were in this band, you got a new CD? Did they ever come to see you play live? What was that experience?
well, I mean, I try and keep both parts of my life kind of separate, but it's
Sure.
kind of hard to get away from
Yeah.
it, because the company that I work for, me and the son that, we went to high school together, we grew up together. He used to roadie for my band. They know me as Roy the singer. That's why it was so funny when, he first mentioned about hiring me at the company. He goes to his dad. He goes, "Hey, look, I want to bring Roy on board." He goes, "Roy the singer? What does he know about HVAC?"
Yeah.
And he was like, "Dad, he knows nothing, but he's really good with people, and we can train him and teach him to do this and that." And they took me on, and I really enjoy it. I work for great people. They give me the freedom to go off and do my shows and stuff like that. But it's funny because in an industry like that, in a blue collar industry, you've got to earn these guys respect. You know
Sure.
what I mean? I could not go into that industry and that world with my hair, and hey, I'm in a band, man. You know what I mean? I had to, if anything, go even harder into it and be more willing to get dirty, be more willing to crawl up under the house, to crawl up in the attic when it's 130 degrees up there. I had to show that I'm not just some, fluffy rock star guy. You know what I mean? And when you earn people's respect on a truly organic blue collar level, um, it's really cool, because these people don't know me, and then they get to know me as just Roy.
Yeah.
Because my whole life it's been Roy the singer. Roy,
Yeah.
oh Roy, yeah, Roy the singer. Oh my God, Roy, Roy, Roy. These people are like, it's fucking Roy. You know what I mean? I mean, it's like so to be accepted by people that just know you for you
Hmm.
is cool. And then I'm like, oh yeah, and this is the other part of my world. And they see it, and because you haven't been a complete douchebag and humble, when they see the other side of what you do, they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, well, this is why I'm, going this weekend. I'm going over here and da 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 da. And then they're like really blown away because they were like, wow, this guy is like really normal and you're doing this. And it's funny because one of my jobs is I will go to meet the city and county inspectors whenever we install a new unit because they have to inspect them. It's got to pass inspection, be by code, and all that stuff. So what's funny is I've been doing it for a couple of years now. I've developed relationships with all the inspection departments and everything. Now when I meet these guys, it's like, "Hey Royce, what the hell's going on? Where you been? Where you played at? What's the next show?" You know, they want to, they don't care about the unit, man. They want to talk about the latest adventures in Roy the Rockstar. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's cool working in that industry and working in that blue collar world because it keeps me grounded and you know it shows that I'm real
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
I'm still out there you know trying to make a living and I'm still pursuing my dreams and you know it's just who I am.
Roy, it's always great having you on and talking to you. I want to thank you for coming on today. Before we say goodbye, is there anything you want to say to folks? And then I'll let Lethal X wrap it up for today.
Just want to thank everybody, man. It's great to be on the show again with you guys. And as always, I want to thank you guys that do these podcasts and stuff like this because you guys are the ones that are, you know, you're the standard bearers, you're the flag wavers of the genre. You're still putting music out there and playing music for people that they would otherwise not hear or not know about. So hats off to you gentlemen for what you do and just thanks to all the fans and all the friends and wonderful family that I've had all through the years, you know, building this crazy career and I'm just going to keep going and you know pick up the new CD We Are One and
Wow.
we appreciate it.
Okay, Lethal X, you have
Thanks
one
for
final
being on
question?
here. No, thanks for being on here, Roy. It's I think people are going to take away something from this interview. Like, hey, this is who this guy really is, you know? Like you were talking about the story of what you do on a daily basis. I don't think people realize a lot of bands are doing that these days, you know, in order to survive. Because
Absolutely.
the rock has and the whole thing has changed over the years from what it used to be. So, you know, I appreciate you taking the time to be here with us today.
Hey man, it's my pleasure, you know, and you know, anytime you guys need me, I'm here for you. And thanks for everything that you do. And you know, like I said, you know, it'll keep you grounded. It'll keep you humble. You know, you got to go out there and you got to earn a living. You got to earn people's respect every day. And when you go out there on stage, you got to earn the respect of the fans. So I pursue both aspects of my life with the same fervor and passion. And I think that people, after all these years, they're finally starting to see that, you know, I'm the real deal. I'm the guy. You know, I'm the dude. I'm the guy that's out there singing, but I'm also the guy that you know, is getting up every morning and putting in the grind. So I'm grinding in both sides of the world, and I appreciate
Yeah,
the
yeah.
support.
Thanks again, Roy.